Hello and welcome to the Alpha Edge Podcast, the show for men over 50 who refuse to fade out, slow down, play small, or settle for average. I'm your host, Kevin English. I'm a healthy aging expert, coach, and founder of the Alpha Edge, and I am here to help you get and stay strong in every dimension of your life, physically, mentally, emotionally, morally, and spiritually. You're here because you're ready to reclaim your power, to own your masculinity, and lead your life with strength and purpose. If you're ready to sharpen your edge, revive your drive, and lead like a man who's built for more, you're in the right place. All right, men, let's get after it. Russell, welcome back.
Pleasure to be back.
Right on, brother, man. Everything going good for you?
Yeah, pretty good.
No
complaints.
Man. Same. Over here living the dream, buddy.
Oh yeah.
Trying to get stronger every day.
Yeah, it seems like it. I have a plan to stop when I'm in my 90s. So.
Stop when you're in your 90s? All right, yeah.
or actually when the clock stops tipping.
When your clock's punched, huh?
Yeah.
All right. Love it. All right, well, hey, last week we talked about the 5 pillars of strength. This week we want to talk about some of the best exercises for strength training. In other words, if you're a dude over 50 listening to this, what's the best way for you to get strong? So we'll talk a little bit about why you might care about being strong. We'll talk about what strength training is, and we're going to break down some of the best exercises, our favorite exercises or programming tips as coaches of dudes in their 50s, 60s, 70s. What are we programming to get folks strong? Now, before we get started, though, I want to let you know that we have a free guide. It is titled How to Raise Your Testosterone Naturally. Dudes, if you're here listening to this, you're a guy over 50, you want to do whatever you can to raise your testosterone naturally. Some of you dudes may be on TRT. Some of you guys might be thinking about it, might be wondering, is that right for me? I would suggest that you do everything in your power naturally to increase those levels. And then if you're still having some problems, that's when we go to the next route and we start exploring some other options there. But again, that guide is it's a free guide, How to Raise Your Testosterone Naturally, 26 pages, chock full of good information to naturally raise your T. And you guys can find that download link in the show notes for this episode on whatever app you are listening to this on. All right, Russell, with that out of the way, so you've got a lot of dudes coming to you over 50, and inevitably, they want one of two things. They usually want both of these things, right? For the most part. They want to lose some fat. They want to get strong. We'll talk about the losing fat part in another episode. But today, let's talk about getting a dude strong, getting a dude jacked. And let's start here. Somebody comes to you and they say, hey, I want to increase my strength. I want to get strong. Where do we start from a programming perspective for a dude that wants to get strong?
You know, I'm a big believer in the compound lifts, the
compound lifts, buddy. Bring it.
Squat, deadlift,
deadlift,
bench press, overhead press, a row. Mm-hmm. You know, and there's hundreds of variations of those. But
sure.
if you know, I always say, hey, let's pull the bar out, the 45-pound bar, and let's work with that and start off with obviously your form, right? And
movement mechanics, yeah.
What's great about that is we could always build up from there, right? So, you know, nothing worse than you see somebody who hasn't been in the gym in a long time and starts throwing the 45 pounds on, and you're like, oh God, this is not going to go well.
Yeah,
because that's what they lifted the last time they were in the gym 10 years ago. So,
right.
Yeah, I always start out with something like that, or a full body workout. And with compound lifts, that's generally where we start. If they've never been in the gym, obviously we could do bands and things like that. But it's mostly going to be those versions of a compound lift, right? And that's where we're going to start off.
Yeah. Those basic mechanics. Yeah. So when Russell's saying compound lifts, these are movements, exercises that use more than one joint. So a squat is pretty self-explanatory, right? We want to be able to squat through the full range of motion. And guys, listen, just because you're over 50 is not an excuse for you not to have to lack the mobility to do a full range of motion squat. That's where that hip crease is even or parallel or lower than the knees. So we want to be able to, with control, slowly lower to that hip crease. Again, is even with the knees. In other words, the thigh bone is 90, is parallel to the ground. And we want to be able to stand up powerfully. And then, of course, the next movement from there is we want to be able to add load. Russell says, hey, maybe we start with a 45-pound bar. That's just the empty bar. And then from there, we start loading that up. But we want to own these compound movements for as long as we can. Again, this is going to directly impact our quality of life as we age, as we move into our 60s and our 70s and our 80s, and if we're blessed enough into our 90s. Think about getting up and down off a toilet unassisted. Well, that's a squat. Think about bending down and picking up your grandkid or a bag of mulch off of the ground. Well, that's a deadlift. So think about pushing something away from you or pulling something towards you. These are very functional movements that we don't want to surrender lightly. So Russell, let me ask you about this. I see, and this drives me freaking nuts. I see it all the time. You get this advice, usually from well-meaning doctors, medical community, or fitness influencers say people over 50 should never squat, and they're referring to a barbell back squat, or should never deadlift. Is that true? Are we too old? Are me and you too feeble and broken down to be able to do these movements?
No, and I often think maybe they're thinking we're going to load the bar up so just on our first rep and just go at it. And I think that's the
mentality behind
the
that.
mentality. Yeah. Because it's funny to me. I used to work with first responders, and I would get, the doctor said I couldn't squat. And I'm like, oh, cool. So you're out of work. And they're like, well, no. And I'm like, oh, because you squat every day when you get in the car. You squat when you get out of the car. You move all day, right? Like, I don't understand. Yeah. I'm trying to understand the mentality behind that. So I often wonder if that's what doctors think. It's kind of like when they say go running. Well, you and I, if we were to start running right now, would make a block and a half. And we'd build up to it, right? Like I would never start off 5 miles in. It's something I'm building up.
Yeah,
to. Right. Yeah, weightlifting, weight training. Yeah, it's. I think that to me, that's what I'm thinking. The doctor's thinking, to be honest with you.
I think you're probably right. I think that there's this misconception that the deadlift, again, just lifting something heavy up off the ground is inherently dangerous, or that barbell back squatting is inherently dangerous. But you're right. Any activity, any exercise improperly, poor form or poor loading, right, overloaded, is going to be dangerous. But I'm here to say that if you can deadlift a decent amount of weight at an advanced age, meaning over 50, you are less likely to get injured in other areas of your life. Similarly, if you can barbell back squat, 1.5 times your body weight, you are a stronger human being than if you can't do that. And I would strongly recommend that all of us, we surrender these movements very, very lightly. And when I say these movements, I'm specifically referring to getting strong in these movements. So there are, kinesiologists and human biology and human movement specialists break down human movement into these 7 primal movements, and they are squat, lunge, hinge, push, pull, twist, and gait. And I'm saying gait, G-A-I-T. So squat is what it sounds like, right? The ability to squat down and stand back up. Lunging is that split stance sort of squatting. So I can lunge forward, I can lunge back, I can lunge to the side. Hinging refers to a hip hinge. So think of a deadlift and all of the deadlift variations. Push would be say a push-up or an overhead barbell press. Pulling would be any kind of rowing, any kind of pull-up type motion. Those are pulls. Twist refers to torso rotation, being able to do that loaded and being strong there, having a strong core. And then gait is walking, running, jumping, sprinting, skipping, all of these things. And these are primal human movements that are inherently given to us as God's grace, right? This is your birthright. And for you to think that just because you passed a certain birthday, you should not be strong and capable and fully mobile in any of these types of movements I think is very detrimental. It's detrimental to your longevity. It's detrimental to your health span, right? How many years you are going to live as a strong, healthy human being. But so with that being said, Russell, let's talk specifically about some programming. I want to talk about your favorite exercises, and we just hit on a few of them here. But before we get that, when it comes to getting strong, a couple things have to be true, right? There's a couple of things that absolutely must be in place, and one of them is progressive overload. You want to talk a little bit about what that means and how we would apply that to a man that's looking to get stronger?
Yeah, I'm guilty of this, but I've seen it many times when I used to be in a commercial gym. I would see somebody work out and they're there on a Monday, so I already know what they're doing. They're doing bench press, right? And
sure,
I can tell you,
we're dudes. We're gonna bench press.
Yeah, I can tell you exactly what weight they're gonna use, how many reps, and how many sets they're gonna do. I've never met the person. I've just seen them there every Monday, and I used to do the same thing, right? Yeah, I would just grab the 25s and I would put them on. That's what I did last week. So let me rep out 10 sets or 10 reps of, 3 sets of this. And that was it. It wasn't until I started bringing, like a notepad, old school notepad, and I would write down what I did. And, I would write down on Monday, I did the bench press, 25 pounds, yada, yada, yada. And the next week, when I'm writing my next week, I would say, oh, I did 25 pounds. And I felt like I could go up. I would put an up arrow in there right next to it. And that would let me know the week later just to go back and all right, now I need to go 30 pounds or 35 pounds or whatever the increase I was going to do. Then I started learning, different set variations, different repetition variations, things of that nature, different rest breaks in between, all different ways you can increase, weight or progressively overload, right? And
yep, 100%.
Yeah, so that was always an eye opener to me when I noticed other people doing it, and I thought back to myself, oh, that's why I never progressed, because I did the same thing. I would just grab the same weight.
I started the exact same way. Yeah. I'd go into the gym and I had no plan. I just wandered from machine to machine, but I'd remember, oh yeah, this leg extension machine, I do this at 90. And so I do 10 of those and I'd rest some random period of time, not with a timer, just rest, till I'm ready. And then I'd go again. Yeah. It wasn't like you, it wasn't until I got a coach and had a structured program, right? Because I think progressive overload assumes a couple things. One is that you have a plan. Hopefully it is a professionally designed, age appropriate, functional strength training plan. And by age appropriate, guys, what I mean is that it's not written by some 19-year-old gung-ho, no pain, no gain kind of program, but it's also not some ridiculous little pink hand weights, take it easy because you're feeble and have one foot in the grave kind of thing. I mean, for dudes that are serious about getting strong in their 50s and 60s. So yeah, I think that having a plan is critical to progressive overload, and then tracking is the other piece of that, right? So I'm tracking. I am accounting for my rest times. I know how many sets, I know how many reps, and I know exactly what weight I did last time I did this exercise. And next time I'm either going to go up another pound or I'm going to add another rep. So this slow, steady progression is the way to go there on progressive overload. So that's got to be true. If you want to get stronger, you must incorporate progressive overload. Now, that Kevin, being said, go ahead.
One thing, speaking of rest periods, as long as you've been doing this, are you still shocked that a minute 30 takes a very long time to go?
Yeah.
I've been doing this so long, and I just noticed that yesterday. I was like, God, I think my timer's on my phone's wrong. And I'm like, oh my God, I still have 25 seconds, because I would have just jumped right into whatever I was doing.
Well, you bring up a really good point, though, because that rest interval, whether that's 1 minute, 90 seconds, if you're doing 3 sets of 3, that's probably 3 minutes. But whatever that is, that's what makes strength. That's a big part of what makes strength training, right? We see a lot of guys that their quote unquote strength training is really some sort of a circuit. It's basically cardio with weights. So maybe they are doing some bench pressing, fantastic. But then they're, in between sets, they're doing jumping jacks, or they're doing crunches, or they're, it's a circuit where I'm going to do my bench press, I'm going to move over and do some curls, I'm going to come over here and do some squats, and I'm going to come over here and do some curls, and then I'm going to get back on my bench press. That's not strength training, not in the way that we're talking about getting strong, capable, being more injury proof. So that's conditioning work, and that's not necessarily bad, but that's not what we're talking about when we talk about strength. So yeah, that having that timer, whether you're looking at the gym clock secondhand or I use an app, and in our coaching practice, everybody's got the same app, and it's got a little built-in countdown timer. So I have the same rest period every time. So we're controlling for these variables, the sets, reps, and the rest time in there. Definitely. All right. Hey, Russell, so let's transition here and talk about some of your favorite exercises. So we got this dude coming in, and let's say he's done some gym training in his past. So he's not a complete and total newbie, but he's deconditioned. He's ready to get back in. He's like, man, I want to get strong, Russell. What are some of your favorite exercises to program for this dude?
Well, definitely all the compound lifts. So
all the compounds, yeah.
Yeah,
So let's go
all the
through them.
compounds.
Where are you going to start? What's day one? What's he going to do?
I think we think similarly. Like, I prefer a full body. I just think it's
Full body
more
workout.
bang,
Yeah.
more bang for your buck. So there's going to be
Yep.
a mix of different stuff in there just to hit the full body. So
Right.
a squat, a deadlift, and a press, a pull type of thing. My favorites are probably a little different than most, right? I have bigger legs than my upper body, so I enjoy all the lower body exercises, which aren't particularly favorite of 90% of the crowd, but I do often preach that I want them to hit that because that's a majority of their muscle, is
Right.
below the waist. So those are the ones I concentrate on, mostly because I know people hate them, right? But you know what? Over the years, I tend to enjoy the stuff that I don't like because I get more joy out of it, right? Because I'm not big with shoulder exercises. So when I do them, I feel really accomplished as opposed to when I do legs because I just enjoy them, enjoy doing legs.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah, so all the major compound lifts and many different variations of them. I like to show people different ways of doing it. Like a squat, a Bulgarian split squat, maybe a sissy squat, right? Those things.
Yeah,
Just
man,
mix
come on,
different
right?
stuff in there, right?
Mix them
And
up. There's
I
a
enjoy
ton of different
that.
squat variations. Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, sirens behind me. Of course, my favorite is to show them how little we have to do to make this happen. I think that's the most fun, right? Like we don't have to be
Yep.
David Goggins.
You don't have to live in the
killing
gym
ourselves.
to get strong.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Yeah. I think right now you and I have slightly different workout routines. I'm doing 3 full body strength training sessions a week. I think that's what you were doing. Didn't you just switch to, are you doing the more frequent, shorter sessions now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was doing
A lot of different ways we can program this to get strong.
Yeah. I'm in the gym maybe 20 minutes and most of that's stretching. So
Yeah.
and I don't feel like I'm losing anything either. I just do 2 lifts and I walk out of the gym. So
a lot of people are surprised that you can maintain or even build strength with so little work. But
I think that was
100%.
I think that was probably all of our misconceptions, right? We had to be in there at least 5-6 days a week.
Sure. More is better, right?
Oh, yeah.
If 3 days is good, then by golly, 4 days is better. And 4 days is
Yeah.
good, 5 days is better. Law of diminishing returns. And look, it's not to say that we can't do 5 days a week of body part split program. That's perfectly appropriate. It doesn't fit for most of our lifestyles. And to your point, a lot of dudes tend to, if you're going to miss a day, the problem with having, body part split days is the day most people miss is leg day. Go figure, dudes, right?
Yeah.
We never miss chest day, but if we're going to miss a day, it's going to be leg day. And so that's another benefit of doing kind of more of a full body. But I'm with you on the programming. Basically, you're saying, hey, I'm going to have my guys do some variation of a squat, some variation of a deadlift, and they're going to push something. So they're going to do an overhead press or a bench press. They're going to pull something. So either a lat pull down or a pull up. So I'm saying, right, that we're going to start with some kind of a lower body. We're going to start with some sort of squat variation, maybe lunge variation this day. We're going to do some kind of deadlift variation or hinging. We're definitely going to be pushing something. And another way to look at this is I'm going to hit my legs. I'm going to hit my posterior chain, including my glutes. I'm going to hit chest. I'm going to hit back. I'm going to hit shoulders. I'm going to hit arms. That's another way of looking at it in a full body context. Another way is just going back to those 7 primal movements, right? You got your squat, lunge, hinge, push, pull, twist, or core, and some kind of movement there. But a couple of my favorite exercises, other than, because I suspect our favorite exercise is going to be squats and deadlifts and, barbell rows and barbell pushes. But I really like things like pull-up, big time pull-up fan. I think every man over 50, if you can't do a strict pull-up, that's a great goal. If you can do one, then your goal is 2. If you can do 2, then your goal is 3. If you're a dude that can rep them out, you can do 10. Time to start loading those suckers up. In other words, hold a dumbbell between your knees or get one of those weight belts and a chain and chain up a plate and start doing some weighted pull-ups. Same thing for dips. I think dips are fantastic. And as a dude, you should be able to do a strict full range of motion dip. That's where you're on those like parallel bar kind of things. And again, once you can get to where you can do a set of 8 or 10, 12 of those, you should probably load those up and work on getting strong in those movements. And then the other one I'll throw in here as one of my favorites, and that's weighted carries, farmer carries, suitcase carries. So a farmer carry, if you're not familiar, that's just holding something heavy in each hand and walking. Great full body. It works grip. It works traps, lower body, core. You got to keep your core tight. And a suitcase carry is put one of those heavy things down and just carry something heavy in one hand. So you're going to go walk 20, 30, 50 steps, whatever. Switch hands, turn around and walk the other way. Really good for full body, just very functional. I feel like those of us that are in this more mature muscle kind of category, finishing our workouts with some sort of heavy carry, just big fan of that. Absolutely love it.
Yeah, those are my yeah. Now that you bring them up, I just started putting those in probably a year or 2 ago, and
oh, is that right?
Yeah, I'm doing it. Yeah, I just never.
All my clients are doing some kind of heavy carries. Yeah. It's not one you see commonly. Yeah,
it applies for life, right? Like
it applies to life 100%.
So,
carrying heavy shit. Yep.
Yeah.
100%.
No, and well, before you just start, real quick, before you start any type of programming or anything, just remember to put your lifestyle into it. So if you don't have 3 days a week, maybe 3 days an hour each time, that's not going to be a great program for you. So think of that. That's a big one I always overlook. Yeah,
that's fair. Yeah, and there's a lot of ways to program. Like you said, hey, if you do 15 minutes 5 days a week, hell yeah, that works. If you got an hour three times a week, that works. But yeah, absolutely love it. Well, I want to finish with this. One of my favorite strength guys is Mark Ripito. I don't know if you know who Mark Ripito out there is, listener, but if not, you should check him out. Very outspoken, definitely a masculine dude. I think he's in his 60s now, but he wrote the Bible on strength training, on compound movements called Starting Strength. So 100% strongly recommend that. And in fact, I will throw a link to that to Amazon for you guys to pick that up. But every dude should own that. And that's how you get your master's degree in squat, deadlift, bench press, and overhead press. And I think even the power clean is in there as well. But if you're somebody who's like, I don't know, I'm a little nervous, I've never really deadlifted or back squatted before, that's your blueprint. That's your plan. That's your education right there. But he's got this saying where he very famously says, strong people are harder to kill and more useful in general. That's the whole quote. But that piece right there, strong people are harder to kill. I absolutely love that. And I feel like as dudes in our 50s, 60s, and as we age up, that's never more true, right? And it's true in the sense that, look, if you're attacked, if you're in a knife fight suddenly, being strong clearly is going to help you survive something like that. But it helps you survive things that maybe aren't so obvious, like illnesses. So whatever the next flu or disease coming around is, the stronger you are, the more optimized your immune system is. The stronger you are, the more you are injury proof. So you're less likely to fall. But if you do fall, you're more likely to not get as badly injured. Or if you do get badly injured, you're more likely to recover quickly when you have this muscle on your body. Having muscle on your body also is so protective against metabolic disease. So the more muscle you have on your body, I don't want to get too nerdy here, but that is an insulin uptake site. So you're you're more likely to manage your weight and to decrease body fat simply by having more muscle on your body. Your metabolism upregulates when you have more muscle on your body. So dudes, I want to encourage you, if you don't currently have a strength practice, to get out there. If you need some help, hit us up. We'd be glad to point you to some resources. But I think it is incumbent upon any man over 50 who's interested in showing up as his strongest, healthiest, badassest, most impactful self in this life. He should be working towards getting and staying strong. So Russell, I think we're going to leave it there for this week. And folks, until next time, stay strong. Okay, men, that's our show for this week. Don't forget to download our free guide titled How to Raise Your Testosterone Naturally. You can find the download link in the show notes for this episode on whatever app you're listening to this podcast on. If you've enjoyed today's show, here are 3 ways you can support us. Number 1, share this episode with a friend. Number 2, make sure to like and follow this show, and please consider leaving us a 5-star review. Number 3, give us a follow over at Instagram. We're at Alpha Edge Army. So that's Alpha Edge Army all run together. I really appreciate you men taking the time to listen. And until next week, stay strong.